So this is one of my favorite persons in the whole wide world. And if it wasn't for him and my husband, of course, I don't know if I would be out of the organization. So yeah, here we go. I prayed for 20 years, but received no answer until I prayed with my legs. Frederick Douglass, 1817 to 1895. Some of us pray, some meditate, some practice mindful inquiry. Some of us make lists, plans, and inventories. This is all working the program. When we find our meditating or mindfulness has degraded to ruminating, we share with another and see if this gives us more clarity. But there comes a time when action is the only cure for our troubles. Sometimes it seems that there is too much to do and too little time. One day at a time is sometimes 23 hours and 50 minutes too much for us. We have things to do. We pick one of our tasks and devote 10 minutes to it. It is amazing how many problems can be tackled with only 3 to 10 minutes of attention. The call we dread, the mess that needs cleaning. We might not get months of disorganization turned around in 10 minutes, but we feel better getting it started. Maybe we just keep going once we start. During times of stress, a little footwork can dissipate our angst better than calling a dozen sponsors or dwelling and dreading all day long. Easy does it, but do it. And first things first. Both make sense. A 1,000-mile journey starts with one step. Perfectionism can be cured by committing to an average effort for the next 10 minutes. When the Big Book was edited in the late 1930s, a lot of "you must" statements were purged and replaced with suggestions and "our experience" statements. One of the absolute statements remained: do not be discouraged. Unrealistic expectations easily disguise themselves as rigorous efforts and can stop us in our tracks. Today, any Must Magnet members can comb through the Big Book and find anywhere from 55 to twice that number of must messages still remaining. Find them all, win a prize. It makes a great party game for sober friends. Faith without works is dead. That means what to me? Can I resolve to work on something that is upsetting me by spending just 10 minutes of time on it? Do I find more solutions to my problems when I put some legwork into it? I have to say, I like the first part. I prayed for 20 years, but received no answer until I prayed with my legs. So my husband had left the organization, and for 20 years I had stayed. If you know our story, it was hard. It was hard for him, and it was sad for me. I did a lot of crying when I would go to the Kingdom Hall by myself. I did a lot of crying in the car. I did praying on the way to the Kingdom Hall and with my girls. You know, they were in fear of God. I think that when you leave, you realize how much you didn't get done in life. And when it says that when we have a mess, right, to have unrealistic expectations easily disguise themselves as rigorous efforts and can stop us in our tracks, right? It says one of the absolute statements remained: do not be discouraged. I think not being discouraged when you leave and realize all the things that you did that were counter to your growth as a human being and for your family members and for your family. It is so, it can destroy you. So making sure that you do just take it one day at a time, because it can be just so overwhelming. And if you're like me, right? I didn't plan on retiring. I didn't buy a home. I didn't encourage my husband to buy a home. We both did things, we would have done things totally differently if we had the opportunity, but we don't. We made a lot of mistakes. And he was kind enough to wait for me. He loved me, and I was grateful. I loved him too. We are going on 30 years of marriage this October. 30 years. And a lot of those years where he was quiet and he didn't express himself fully, he did have to walk on eggshells. And now there's a lot of feelings that come up, right? That we're now dealing with as a couple. And it's important for me to hear him out, because before I wouldn't, because I always allowed God to step in and protect me, right? Which was really my mind protecting me and shutting him off. So just realizing that, yes, there's a wave of other things that come up when you leave, and especially if you have a mate that you didn't listen to, and the importance of listening to them now and feelings now, right? There was a doctor that I was listening to, or it was actually a therapist. Oh, I love him so much. I can't remember what his name is, but when I get it, but he was explaining harmony, disharmony, and harmony again. So being able to, as a family and as a couple, and for kids to see that there's harmony, right? There's harmony and disharmony, but we can have harmony again. And I think even as mates, right? For the years, I always thought, well, if I leave Jehovah, then my marriage is going to fall apart. And that is not the case. There's so many marriages that fell apart because of this belief system and this God that was so rigid. And there's a lot of marriages that are falling apart because people are opening up and realizing that what the organization has done is destructive to people. So just chinking it off little by little, right? Not feeling like you have to do a full-on just fixing yourself. It's not going to help. It's not going to happen in just one day or 1 year or 2 years. It's going to take time. It's been 4 years since I left. 4.5, I think. So I haven't really looked at I was going by the days, and I haven't looked at how many days I've been out, but I'll do that. This is my birthday month and my anniversary month. It's a lot. Yeah. So being realistic, right, about our expectations and our growth. And if you're just coming out of the organization and you're realizing how much you missed out on, I think that I have to just appreciate what I had done, right? I was a good mom. I did the best that I could under the circumstances with my mother. And my dad, his suicide, and my mother's not wanting to have anything to do with me, shutting me off, which is fine. I realized how important that was to my growth, but at the time it didn't feel good. I realized so many things about the organization and the people in it, like the elders and how abusive they can be and what they've done to families, and financially what they've done to people. It's just stressing, yes, right? But focusing on myself and where I could grow and what I needed to change really did make a difference in how I approached life. And it's not chunks, right? I'm not going to get better in just 1 year or 2 years or a certain amount of time. It's going to take time, and it's learning about life around me, and having that open-mindedness that helps with that process, right? Being able to process your thoughts and being able to grow in a way that is healthy. And that generally means time. It takes time. And so not to rush the process of grief, because for a while I had to grieve God, because I was like, what happened? How is it that this has happened to me? And I was so blinded to it all. So our brains are pretty wired a certain way, especially if we have been wired with fear. And that's exactly how kids are wired when it comes to the organization. That's how they've kept us in for so long. That's how we will turn our backs on our family members when we know in our guts that we shouldn't do it, right? But we are so afraid of a group of other people. So it takes time to build up the character to change. And like Mr. Douglas said, he realized that his legs were the ones that needed to. That's how he could grow, is he had to move. And that's how it is I can really relate to that statement. When I finally shut it off and said, enough, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to move towards a direction that I feel is more humane and on the right side of human history, right? And for my children and for my husband and for my family and for my mental health. So it took some strength on my part. So I hope this helps you on your healing journey. Big hug over the satellites, as I always say. Hug over the satellites. I hope you're doing well. I hope your families are doing well. Thank you so much for bringing me into your home, and follow your bliss and be good humans.